Hey guys, it's Pete from Beef Anxiety here. Welcome into today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing, pause this video, go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get into today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete vs. Anxiety. My guest today is a doctorate-prepared psychiatrist, mental health nurse practitioner. I know it's a mouthful, whose whole approach blends traditional psychiatry with holistic and integrative medicine to create highly personalized treatment plans. We welcome in Britt Ritchie. How you doing, Britt?
I'm good. How are you today?
I'm doing good. That tripped me in. I'm like reading that whole sentence, like, holy crap, dude.
It's a lot of letters too. I know.
Right. Well, why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself? Obviously, I give you a great intro, but I know it comes better from you. So why don't you tell them who Britt really is?
Sure. Well, I am a psychiatric nurse practitioner, as you said, and I've been doing this for about 8 years. I have extensive experience working in a variety of settings. So I've worked in community mental health. I've worked in private practice. I was a professor at the University of Colorado for 3 years, recently resigned from there. I've worked for a hospital system where I do consultation liaison psychiatry. I perform TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a treatment for depression and OCD, and work in the intensive outpatient program. And recently opened up my own practice. And so that's my career in a nutshell. I'm from Montana. I live in Colorado. I'm a mother and a wife, and I have 3 dogs, which hopefully you won't hear. So that's me.
Listen, if we have the dogs, it's okay. I've got 2 over here right now, so it's not a big deal. We've had some interesting things go on. Sometimes you can hear them back there fighting. They're like, "Arr!" It's like, what's going on over there? Don't mind. It's just the dogs back there. So anyways, well, thank you so much for coming. That's a lot. That's a lot to process. Damn. Like, you're all over the place. So what got you into psychiatry like that, though? I mean, is this something you've always been passionate about, or is it something you kind of fell into?
I would say that I've always had an interest in it, but I was a medical nurse for 10 years before I went and got my master's and specialized in psychiatry. And I really just felt a calling. I have some personal experience and family members also that kind of inspired me to get into this field. And because I just have had that natural curiosity for the human mind and the human behavior, it was a great fit, and I love it. It was the best decision I've ever made.
Yeah, it sounds like it is. I mean, like I said, you're deep in diving deep in there, though. But you're from Montana originally. So how did you
Mhm.
end up in Colorado, though? It's kind of an interesting move.
Yeah, so I actually met my husband while we were on cruise ship on family vacations,
Okay.
and he lived in West Virginia at the time, and so I really fell for him and moved to West Virginia, and that's where I went to nursing school. And his company opened up an office in Colorado, and that's how we ended up moving here.
I was gonna say it's kind of an interesting move. I mean, but it's kind of the same. Like, a lot of snow. Then there's
Hmm.
no snow. There's a lot of snow. I remember because I used to live in Colorado for a bit, for a short period of time. And like, I'm from the north originally, and oh my god, like the snow, like just like kept going on and off. I'm like, all right, I'm done with the snow already. We can get rid of this now, And then what is it? -30 below zero is the coldest I've ever been in. Let me tell you that that's cold.
Yeah, I'm from northeastern Montana, and it gets extremely cold, especially with the wind up there. And so it doesn't quite get as cold here, which I'm happy about, but I know how to drive in the snow here, so that's a bonus considering the traffic.
She's like, I got it. Don't worry about the snow. It's okay. So you say you start your own practice. What's that like now? Is it great having your own, be able to make your own schedule, do your own thing? Do you get a lot of people that come ask you for advice and things like that too, though?
Yeah, I love it. I get to create something that's totally my own and get to focus on the areas that I feel are of the most important and work with the people that I feel like I can help the most. And yeah, people are always so curious about, mental health and psychiatry. And I get a lot of people asking questions, asking for advice. And I love love it. I love helping people, and I was a professor, so I love teaching. So everything's great.
Yeah, and I know it says that you're the holistic side too. So what kind of stuff do you do that, would fall in that category, just so people understand what kind of other things you offer?
Yeah, so I think kind of the stereotypical perception of what a psychiatric nurse practitioner can do is prescribe prescription medications. And I go far beyond that in this role that I'm currently in. So I offer extensive laboratory testing to make sure we're not missing anything medical or nutritional, and we're really optimizing physical health. And I offer also therapy, multiple different therapies. I specialize in de-prescribing medications because that's something that I experienced trying to come off of a medication, which kind of lit that fire in me, to specialize in that area. And there's a big focus on nutrition, exercise, lifestyle, stress management. So really looking at the entire picture for optimal, physical and mental health.
I think that's great though, because you're covering everything. And I don't think people realize or even think about that. The fact your food, your lifestyle, all these things play factor into your mental health, and everybody's like, oh, well, they always think they think of the big words, but they don't think of whatever could cause it. They're like, oh no, I need medication to fix this. No, your lifestyle changes could make a lot of those changes for you too. Even the stuff you eat too, and the foods you put in, and because they always say what you put in and what you get out. It's like you put crap in, you're gonna get crap out. You put good stuff in, you get good energy out, and I don't think people think about that really, because I think everyone's too busy in the I want it now kind of lifestyle we're all in now. Like, I want to right this minute. I don't want to wait for something. And I think that's what throws a lot of people off too, though.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. Those changes alone can create a huge impact and benefit for your mental health. And yeah, a lot of times people don't see the connection there, but obviously our head is connected to our body. So everything everything works in synergy.
Right. And a lot of people say the gut is actually the main brain of your body too. And it's really weird when you find that out, though. It's like you're always being told your brain is the one that's running the show, but really your gut plays a major factor in it too.
100%. Yeah. I mean, there's so much research out on that, and it's finally gaining popularity in like mainstream medicine to the importance of the gut brain connection, and how what we eat affects how we think, how we feel, our mood, everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're right, though. It does. It affects how you feel because, like, think about it. You start putting all that crap in, then you feel sluggish and things like that. And all these things you want, all this fast food you're eating. And it's like people don't realize, like, how bad it is for you. I mean, though we've seen these documentaries like Super Size Me and things like that, or the guy went on a 30-day binge of just nothing but McDonald's. It's like the mental state he was going through, though, you could just see him start deteriorating little by little because he's just like, oh, God. I don't want to eat another meal. It's just that bad. And then he's getting sick, and then his health is just going completely berserk. And it's like, the scary thing is that people are actually still doing it, though, regardless of the fact of all the things that he brought to light, though, in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's really disheartening to think about the nutrition in this country and where priorities are at more of a political level, which I'm not getting into, but
Yeah,
it
I
just
agree.
is so easy to eat that way. And, it takes a lot of discipline to make better choices. And sometimes even the better choices are not as good as we think they are, just because like nutritional depletion in the soil and processing of foods and whatnot. So it's an incredibly hard um, change to make and stick to kind of avoid fast food and try to eat healthy,
Yeah.
whole grain foods and fresh foods and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's more expensive too sometimes. It's crazy the cost. It should be the vice versa, honestly. Everything that's bad for you should have a higher cost versus everything good for you should be less personally. And that way we can start instituting better eating habits for people, even at a younger age. Shoot, the younger kids start teaching them how to eat, how to enjoy their food for what it is, not for all this processed stuff that's out there. Everything's got a flashy packaging, and that's how
Mhm.
they get a lot of people in.
Yeah, and I know there's been a lot of information like in the news lately about like food dyes and how those are banned in other countries, but not in the United States, to make like cereals more colorful and more attractive to children, kind of speaking to your point,
Yeah.
which is again disheartening.
Isn't it? It's crazy though, because they're targeting certain kids, and a lot of advertisements that's what they're for too. So they're targeting the kids because they know they're going to be there longer than their parents, obviously, and
Mhm.
it's insane the things they put in. If you actually start to read some of these labels, it's like you're trying to figure out what half these ingredients are nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the kind of the rule of thumb is like if you can't pronounce it, you probably shouldn't eat it. But that's so hard to do because it's in everything.
Yeah, it is. It's scary, man. It's like when you start because I went on one of those like 500-calorie diets when it was a big fad, And what I realized is when I start looking at stuff, man, dude, these half these things I'm putting in are just like it's horrible. Like those grandma cookies, for example. Like if you really look at them, they're like 500 calories a cookie, and I'm just like, oh god. If you think about your daily calorie intake, it's like that's a good portion of it right there. You're eating just two of those cookies, and it's just like, oh god. And I did notice though that I didn't feel so great, and then it started dragging down my mood, and then I was more irritable and things like that. And now that I've made a lot of changes, I've noticed a lot of different things in my own mental health myself. Is like I'm in a better mood, I have more energy, I'm not so tired. My depression doesn't get the best of me a lot of times. There are days where it's bad, like people would never even know because I don't tell people really because they always
Mhm.
want to do that whole like, oh well, I feel oh, I'm so. It's like I don't want to hear all that though. Like it's like I already feel bad enough. I don't need you to keep piling on. I understand you're trying to be helpful, but you're really not helping me. Unfortunately, I thank you, but no thanks, kind of thing. And it's not to be rude to people. So I just if anybody asks me if something's really irritating, they're like, hey, how you doing? I'm okay. And I don't give them really much other than that because I don't want a lot of people in getting involved. And I think it's one of my downfalls too is I don't tell people enough when I'm in a bad mood or I have something that's going through my head that I don't really like because I just don't know how people are going to react nowadays. And I feel like when it comes to mental health, when you get to certain subjects, everybody shuts down instantly when they hear something or like you start telling people a bunch of problems. A lot of them are just like, okay, well, let me tell you about my problems instead. And then it's a one-upper war of who can do more for the other.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying related to that. It is. I think even though mental health is becoming, less taboo,
Hmm.
more people are open to talking about it and getting treatment. It's still a lot of people just feel really uncomfortable around it. They don't know how to respond when people open up and like you said, everybody has their own um, mental health, symptoms that they're trying to manage or experiencing, and it's just I'm really glad that it's moving to be more or less stigmatized, where more people are talking about it and open to going and getting support and sharing their experiences. It's super powerful.
I think it really is powerful. You make a really good point there because a lot of times you hear people tell their stories and then you don't feel like you're the only person that's dealing with these things. And then it makes it a little more comfortable because then you're like, okay, well, now I don't feel so alone because now so and so or this person feels that or Pete or Britt have these things that I can agree with, and you can connect with people too. And a lot of people when it comes to certain subjects, it's just like they get really worried because they don't know a lot. And I think that's our biggest downfall is that we're not educating enough people about these things. It's great that we're making an uptick on it though, finally. Because with COVID blew that out the board. That everybody's seen that they have a lot of things that were going bad. But now it's like we have to retrain people how to reintegrate into work because they've been so far gone for so long. And it sounds funny, but it's just like that's how it is. We've been so remote for so long. It's like we forgot how to interact with other people, which is a daily thing we do all the time.
Yeah, and I think for some people that experience, excuse me, especially people that experience a lot of anxiety, like that was kind of a relief for them, and unfortunately, kind of fed into their resistance to working on their anxiety by exposing themselves to situations that make them a little bit uncomfortable. And so now it's even harder to kind of move back into that kind of socialized setting than it was before.
Isn't it funny though? It's like it's so hard to go integrate back into an office setting where you have to interact with other people. It's like have we gotten that far removed with technology and everything else that we can't talk to people anymore? It sounds like a strange question, but I mean, you have like all these different social media sites that people connect through, and it's like nobody really does any face to face conversations hardly anymore. It's like you rarely see it anymore, and when they do, it's so awkward because people forgot how to talk to one another.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how fast people can lose those skills, or like when they were growing up, like younger kids when COVID was, happening and they were
Mhm.
they were small and they weren't in school and whatnot, like they got a little bit stunted in their communication skills. And that's like a big learning curve to get over.
Oh no, I agree. It was different because I have kids of my own. You have kids, so you
Mhm.
understand. And it was weird because it's like then they're like, oh well, I'm talking to so and so right now, and then it's like okay, and they're like, oh well, hey, I'm like, why don't you call them on the phone or go hang out? Oh no, we can't do that. No, we got to keep our distance from each other. It's so weird because it's like I'm so used to being like my mom kick us out of the house and we have to go hang out with friends. Nowadays, you can't even do that anymore because you have to worry about what predators are out there lying and waiting.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of barriers now. Kids can't just be kids and go ride their bikes and be out till the sun goes down, and come home. I don't know, maybe there's too much concern without much teeth to the actual, more likely consequences of letting your kids have some more independence and really growing those social skills and learning how to entertain themselves without electronics and building relationships. There's a lot of things getting in the way, it seems like.
Yeah, for sure. I agree though. So let me ask you something though. So for mental health, what do you feel like is the biggest subject that people don't talk about enough?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, Let me think. And that's hard for me because I eat, breathe, and live mental health. But I think probably being open with other people in their lives about mental health struggles,
Yeah.
because it seems it's really scary before you're able to do it, but it's freeing to be able to express like, okay, I have, anxiety, for example, and these kind of situations make me feel really uncomfortable. But I'm working on that, and because I'm doing that, I'm, gaining my confidence. I'm feeling better in, establishing relationships with other people, and it opens up a whole new world. If you can just kind of be a little bit vulnerable and let people in, people are very responsive to that and accepting, and they can help you on that journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that once you start talking about your problems with people, a lot of people start to be a little more accepting of it because they start to learn more about it, and you're telling them, oh, these are why trigger things that happen. And all these new words that start getting introduced for a lot of people that don't understand mental health that well. I feel like, when it comes from me, my anxiety, a lot of times it's a lot of people don't understand, like, they're like, it's easy to tell you to stop worrying about things. But for me, my brain is constantly thinking about it all the time. Like, I'll get a thought in there, it just starts going in that process. And it's like your dryer, it just keeps spinning and it keeps going. And then it's picking up pace on me, you know. And it's hard for people to understand that don't get it. And you can see that though with different generations, like the older generation were taught way different than we were now. Now these kids nowadays, now there's so much different things that they're starting to experience with the whole internet and everything else. Now they have more access to information. Unlike we did in the 90s, we only had like AOL and the beginning of the internet. We didn't even know half these things even existed.
Yeah. I think it's important also to not, hit people over the head with your mental health issues as well. There's a fine line in like disclosing and sharing information and then making that the total focus of every conversation or your life. So it's really important to not um, only think about your mental health concerns and kind of create discussions around that, but to balance that out in a more productive way.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point is to balance it out because I feel like a lot of people, that's the biggest struggle they have is, setting those boundaries or having like, different things like balancing their life in general. Cause a lot of people get that diagnosis and they get so locked in. They're like, oh, well, now I have anxiety. So now the whole world's got to be controlled by this. It's like, not really. It's just, it's a better idea for people to understand how to help you better without you, without you having to struggle so much, and it's I think people take diagnosis and run with it too much. They're like, oh, now I got a diagnosis, it's time to go. Now I got to wear it like that's it. I'm depressed all the time. It's kind of like watching that movie Inside Out, like all the different characters of all the movies and things like that. Some people think take it and run with it and then they kind of milk it a little bit and it's like, yeah, I think you're doing this all the wrong way. I mean, people want to support you, but don't try and emotionally drain them.
Yeah, you make a really good point that, a diagnosis is really it's a label, obviously, but we use that to structure, the treatment that we're going to provide.
Yeah.
And, getting into insurance, like that's required for getting the right treatment and it getting paid for. But it's important to not really latch on so tightly to those diagnoses because they can fluctuate. You can have anxiety, for 5 years and then it can go away, or your depression. So it's important to know those labels are important to help you understand what's going on with you and the treatment that would be helpful, but not to totally identify with it.
Yeah, speaking of treatment though, what is some of the biggest misconceptions? Like people think automatically with therapy, everything is pills. Like how they associate these weird random things and you ask them where they got it from. A lot of them are like, well, this is what I was told. It's like, it's too much hearsay going on. So why don't you break it down from a little know, hey, listen, treatment isn't what are some things that people think that are not right about, therapy and treatment?
I think a lot of people think that therapy is talking about your childhood or
You're right.
rehashing things from the past, or it's just like a talk therapy.
Yeah.
And it can be so much more than that. Like I tell my patients, if you don't want to talk about something, you don't need to talk about that. Like it's important to focus on what your goals are right now and find a therapy that's tailored for that goal. And there's so many different options out there. There's all kinds of therapies to help people with all different types of personalities and needs. I think, medication also is people have an idea that they're just going to be prescribed a specific medication, or that they've tried everything and that there's no other options out there. But there's so many more creative ways to go about with treatment, like adding in supplements and nutraceuticals, really getting a good assessment to make sure we're treating the right thing. Checking those labs to make sure that we're not missing something like a thyroid or a low vitamin D that could be contributing. So uh, treatment is vast and full of layers, and it should not be cookie cutter, and it should be individualized for each person.
No, I think that's a great point, though. There is different kinds of treatment. Myself, I'm gonna start going under what is it, trauma recovery coaching, actually myself. So I mean, it's about something that I'm about to start taking on myself. So there is talk therapy. I've tried it. I don't feel like it really worked too much for me. It got to some things, but I feel like it wasn't the end all be all. And I think that's what people need to understand is that sometimes if it doesn't work for you, don't give up because there's so many more options. Like you said, nowadays, there's so many different things people are doing these days, especially the holistic healing getting way bigger and things like
Mhm.
that. All people using like psychedelics and stuff in certain ways to help you with certain things. I think it's getting more interesting as we go because now you have more options and you can't say, oh, well, I tried everything because you haven't. There's so many different things like you just pointed out that are going on. Like myself, I'm trying something totally different that I never even would have thought about even trying until somebody had come to me and said, hey, listen, have you ever thought about trying this before? And I said, why not? Give it a shot. I mean, because what more do you have to lose at this point? Why not give it a shot? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's okay. It's not the end all be all. Doesn't mean, you can't be fixed. It's just that wasn't for you. There's other options though these days. And so many people such as like yourself that are doing different things that are pushing these boundaries further, that are making it easier for people to have more options and less excuses on why they can't do it.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's just like the amount of options out there are almost limitless. And I think you bring up a good point about like maybe you didn't have a great experience with a therapist in the past. Not everybody clicks, right? So
Yeah.
it's really important when you're like looking to find a good therapist or a provider to make sure it's a good match. And if it's not a good match, don't just write it off and, try to find somebody else that have like a better vibe with and give it another go.
It's funny you say vibe because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I didn't like this person. I said, listen, they already know how this engagement works. And a lot of them will tell you right after the first session, they're like, oh, listen, do you think this is going to fit? Because if it doesn't work for you, it don't work for me. And it's fine. It's not like you're dating the clinger, girlfriend that's really clinging on you. Like, no, they don't care. They understand at the end of the day that they may not be the person for you. Their methods may not work for you. And I think that's a lot of times a lot of people have told me though recently were like, yeah, well, I kept going because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. You're not hurting anybody's feelings. They don't care. They understand that if it doesn't work for you, they don't feel like you're going to get anywhere. Then why waste each other's time? I mean, they're under that understanding already. So like, if you got to go through 5 or 6 different ones, I mean, it is what it is. You got to find that person, like you said. You got to click with that person that makes sense, that does what you need them to do for you. Because at the end of the day, if you both can't work together, it's just no point. You're just wasting both each other's time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think also you bring up another really great point, that it's important to have an open conversation with
Hmm.
your provider. Like if you feel like something's not working, or you have a question or a concern, you need to bring that up. Like, we're here to have that conversation with you and help you get the care that you need. And if it's not a good fit, like, we can help you find somebody that is. So don't, try to push through or think that it's going to hurt our feelings or whatnot. People work better with some people than others. There's no hard feelings, and we can help you get somewhere that's a better fit for you.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's the part that people get, or they have that attachment issue. They're like, oh, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings thing. And it makes me laugh because I'm like, yeah, you see, like you just said, it's like they already expected that. We want to get you to where you need help. You need help, and you need to have the open conversation. I think that's the hardest part, though, is when people open up. They don't know what to expect next. Like they feel like when they share stuff, people look at them weird, And my wife makes that comment a lot of times too. She's like, "Well, I just said something really weird. Now people think I'm weird." And I have another friend the same way. It's just like she just got real with them. She got real in her own words, and people just weren't ready for that type of conversation. And I think that's what shuts a lot of people down, is when you start getting into the nitty gritty of things. It's like, they don't know how to react. So everybody makes it more awkward than it is. But, when, like you said, you need to be open in these conversations so we can get you to where you need to be. Because if you're not honest, then you're just lying to yourself at the end of the day. Why lie to yourself and put yourself through more struggle when you could easily fix the problem at just having an open conversation with the person, and like you said, you're looking to help them get somewhere they need to be. If you're not the one, hey, listen, we got all these other people and a lot of times, you that's how a lot of people work. They network with other people, and they know other people that do other specialized things that may help you. So as long as you're honest about what's going on, your people like yourself can go send them to someone else. Like, listen, I may not be able to help you, but I got somebody I know, they can help you out in these problems. Let's go talk to them, and go from there, and send them on their way to where they need to be.
Yeah. Let's see. What was it? You said something and that made me think, oh, it's a great opportunity to practice having those conversations too, because it should be a safe place to be able
Hmm.
to express yourself and your needs and have, a productive dialogue about it. And that can help you have those conversations outside of the therapist's office as well. So even though it might be uncomfortable for you, you need to do what you need to do to get what you need, right? And then it's practice for having these kind of more challenging conversations in the real world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what it is. A lot of people like to joke about things, and then they meet somebody that really is kind of like off the rails a little bit in their eyes. And this goes back to my wife again. She had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they were making comments about something. So she started talking about that subject, and whoa, never mind. The conversation got a little too taboo for them after that, because they realized that she really, knows a lot more about these things, or has experienced these kind of things, without saying it. And they're like, oh, well, now the conversation got weird. I'm like, you're the one that started this conversation. What do you mean? You all think everything's a joke, but when things start getting real, everybody starts getting real uncomfortable real quick. It's like, well, and I think that's the problem, is that people don't take a lot of these subjects serious. Like, or somebody starts calling you and say, hey, Britt, I think I'm hurting myself or whatever. I think people go to panic mode when they start hearing certain catchwords like that. And they're like, oh God, what do I do? Listen, first off, how about listen to them? Like, they're talking to you. You're already winning the battle there, because most people don't talk to you about these things because they're not sure how you're going to respond. Or if you feel like you can't help them, suggest like 988 or one of these other, some of these crisis lines that help people. Like, they're trained for these things. If you ever run into those situations, make sure you have your resources lined up too. Like, 988's great if you ever need somebody to call. You feel like somebody's really in trouble. You think somebody's going to do something. Suggest they call them. And, even if you have to three-way call them and get them on the phone with them, like, listen, hey, I got a friend. This is the situation. And let them take over for you, because there's all these great resources out there, and we're losing too many people not using them. And I think that's the major problem that it is that a lot of people don't know what to do in those situations. They start panicking.
Yeah, I think if somebody is opening up to you about, something that's really deep and personal and could maybe be a little bit scary, I think it's good because they trust you
Yeah.
and they want help,
Yeah.
right? And just listen to them and be supportive and ask them what they need. Ask them what you can do to help. That's a great way to, if you don't know what to say or you're, feeling uncomfortable, just remember that they trust you and they're opening up for a reason, and ask them how you can support them.
Yeah, that's a great point though. Ask them, just see what they say. And if you're not sure what to do, there's all these great resources these days now that you can use to go help, you know, help you better help them. At the end of the day, you're not being a bad friend by calling these numbers and asking for help and
Mhm.
taking them and moving them there and three-waying a call to them. Because I think a lot of times when it comes to that, people start calling and start saying things, or they start making jokes about stuff too. And people think they're funny. Oh, well, haha, it's funny. Oh, I'm thinking about killing myself. Oh, haha. And is it really a joke though? You got to really think about is that a deeper message? Is that somebody crying for help, trying to tell
Mhm.
you, hey, I need help, but without telling you they need help, and they're just making jokes to see how you react to it. Or the other scenario I run into, I've heard from several people, was that, oh, hey, call me if you ever need something. You call them and then they just shut you down completely. They're like, oh, well, I've got, it's like, then they're not going to call you back. Because if something happens, then you can't go, oh, well, I told them to call me if they ever need something. Well, think about it. Maybe they did try to call you and you shut them down by not listening to what they have to say. So they're just like, okay, forget it. So why call you then? Because you're not going to listen to me anyways. I've already tried it once. Why call you again? I'm not going to get shut down again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a very delicate situation.
Yeah, it was scary though, because I had a guest on the show that had told me that's what her story was. And she was like, yeah, I reached out to one of those friends that said, call me if you need something. And then it turned out the person, when she called, completely just shut her off. It's like, oh yeah, okay, my problems just supersede yours and things like that. It's like, well, hold on, you told me to call you if I needed something. So now you're basically shutting me down, even though you're the one that said that, hey, listen, if you ever need something, reach out. It's like, don't offer it if you're not ready to be that person, though, because those people depend on you when it comes to a crisis situation. If they're calling you to talk to you, they obviously need you for something.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, if you're going to make that commitment to somebody, you've got to stick to it.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think it was scary when she said it, because I was like, oh my god, that's insane. But it's like, she's like, yeah, I went to reach out to somebody, and then they shut me down, and I'm like, that's so scary. It's like you literally just told me to call you, but now you're shutting me down. Even though it's like I'm a little confused here. And then it'll be okay, something happens, and it'll be, oh well, I wish they would have called me. And it's like, but dude, they did try to call you. What are you talking about? You're making this
Yeah.
harder than it's got to be here. You're making these things up. You're saying, oh, call me, but then you're not call. I call you and you shut me down. Then what's the point of that?
Yeah, and then I also think that if you're too busy or you're too overwhelmed with what you have going on in your own life at that time, and you've made this like commitment to somebody, like call me if you need help, and you don't feel like you can live up to that, just help them get to somebody else who can do it right now, who has the bandwidth.
I love it. Love it. Use the word bandwidth. I love that that word gets used a lot of times too, because I think that's a really great way to interpret it. Though, take it, give it to get them to somebody. At least try to help them out, because they're calling you for help. And things like that. And it could be anybody. Like you said, you have family members that have mental health issues too. And things like that too. And it's hard too when all these people just start overloading you with everything. And I'm an empath. So here's the situation I run into a lot of times. A lot of people throw a lot at me, or I sense a lot of energy around me. And I think sometimes I take on too much, and then I just start feeling really just down. And I feel real sick. I feel real tired. And it's a lot for me at times, because when I do these interviews, some people come in with some heavy things, but they come in with some seriously heavy stuff. I've
Mhm.
had a guy in the show talk about his suicidal ideation. Like, he was talking about that morning, he literally considered it that morning, taking his own life. And he was live on the show telling us about it. And I'm just like, oh God, here we go. And in my mind, I'm thinking about it. I'm freaking out. But on the outside, I'm just kind of keeping it stonewall, because I'm trying to keep it together, because I don't want him to know I'm panicking, because he's being honest with us. He's talking about this. And I've never seen an upward response of people. I've never met this guy until this point. I had like 18 people start asking me, oh, is he okay? Is he okay? I'm like, yeah, he's actually pretty fine. Actually, I've talked to him later on that day. We started messaging back and forth and things like that. But I think, like, as soon as that conversation started happening, man, people just start went into complete they're like DEFCON 5, man, here we go. The things are going. And I'm in my own head, I'm like, oh God, here we go, dude. I don't know what he's gonna say next. And he was like, I'm sitting at the edge of the bed. He's describing the moment to me. And I'm just like, whoo, here we go. I'm feeling this one, man. And being an empath, I'm feeling all this guy's energy as he's talking about this, and I'm feeling the emotions. And it's mentally draining at times for me too, So like sometimes when I finish doing these recordings, I kind of have to go take a nap because I'm just like, dude, this is too much for me.
It is. I mean, a lot of people, most people, I think, in the mental health industry are in it for reasons, right? Usually people have their own experiences, or they're very empathic, and they want to help people. And it's really hard to, it's a skill you have to develop to try to separate, so you don't take all of that on, because it is very draining. And it's really important for mental health professionals to take care of themselves, so they can show up every day and help people to their fullest extent, because it's hard to not feel that, right? And I think that that's a great attribute to have, but it can also be detrimental if you don't have the skills or the procedures in place to try to.
No, I agree 100% with you.
Distance from that. Sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. No, I agree though. And the funny thing I've been hearing recently though is that a lot of people say their own therapists have a therapist to talk to. I'm like, I believe it, man. Some of these things these guys get brought to the table, they need to talk to somebody themselves. And it's not really uncommon anymore that a lot of them have their own therapist themselves that they go and vent to, or they talk to about a lot of the stuff they deal with on a daily basis, It's really funny to me because it's like a lot of people think that's shocking. I'm like, think about it, man. They offload all these things on you offload all these things on them on a daily basis. Like they have to go and offload it to somebody else themselves, and it's starting to make more sense that a lot of them have it though, because a lot of the issues they deal with, some of them get pretty intense depending on what you're looking at on that scale of, different things.
Yeah. And I mean, we're people too. Like we have our own problems, and we have our own past experiences and traumas that we're, trying to work through. And there's something called like secondary trauma. That's when you can become traumatized by some of the things that you see and hear in your line of work. And so that's good that people are going and seeing a therapist to work through that and process that, so that they can continue to do their job and help the people that are coming to them for help as well.
Yeah. So, Britt, let me ask you a question. How old are your daughters, by the way? Or your children, I mean, sorry.
Oh, I have two boys, and they are 11 and almost 16.
So have you had an open conversation with them about mental health, since that is your field of which you're in, maybe help them better understand things so they know if they have a problem or their friends may have a problem?
Yes. Maybe too much. No, I think I balanced that out pretty good, but we definitely talk about it. And I'm really trying to teach them to be in tune with their feelings and their emotions, and be able to reach out when they're feeling overwhelmed or need some support.
So let me ask you a question as a parent. For other parents that don't really do that much now, what advice could you give them? Like, how do you start the conversation with someone that young, depending on whatever age you feel like is the best age to start talking to them about it? Because I think that a lot of kids should be taught more about these things early on and be in tune with their feelings, as you were saying for your boys, things like that. They should learn these kind of things. What age and how do you start that conversation with them though?
So I just want to preface this with that I don't typically work with children and adolescents. So I'm putting my parent cap on and using the knowledge that I do use on a daily basis for this. But I think the most important thing when you're trying to teach your kids about mental health and relationship development and confidence is to listen to them. It's to talk to them about their day, their experiences, and to listen to what they're telling you. And that models to them that it's okay to speak up and express yourself, because people care and they're listening. And I think it's also really important to teach them about their different emotions, because a lot of people don't actually know the names for emotions. Like there's this thing called an emotion wheel, and there's like, I don't even know how many emotion names there are on there. Most people use like 6, anger, sadness, happiness, whatever. And people don't really understand their emotions. And just using those language and teaching them those skills alone can go like really far.
Yeah.
And then as they develop, they feel more comfortable reaching out for help, expressing themselves, and understanding how they're feeling.
Yeah. I honestly, I think it's really great though you're talking to them about it, because I feel like the conversation should get started sooner.
Mhm.
Just so they understand, like you said, their feelings, because a lot of people are using 6 of them. There's so many different emotions out there. I think giving them a name is a lot easier for them too, to understand. Like, okay, well, this is what anger is, and I know what anger is. And you don't have to be an expert with kids. It's just like that's just your parental prerogative as a parent. You're trying to teach these guys something and trying to teach them, hey, listen, these are your feelings, these are what they are. These are things too, and you having a better understanding is way better for them too, because they can come to you and ask you questions like, hey mom, I got a question for you. I got a friend that's doing these things, or they start telling you things that you start to identify really quick, and you could break it down from like, listen, hey, this is what they may be dealing with their anxiety or something like that. And it's great because they can learn these things ahead of time, and then they could be a great resource for somebody else, or a great friend to someone else, and they'll know like, hey, okay, well, I know how to handle this situation a little bit. My mom does these kind of things, and they could kind of flex a little bit out there, like, hey, listen, my mom does these things, she can help me, I can understand these things a little better, and I think that the conversation uh needs to be had younger, honestly, with some of these younger kids, just so they start to understand their emotions in general. Even if we teach them just that, I think we're already winning the battle right there.
100%. And I think I probably said that 100 times, but I totally agree with everything you're saying. I think, starting, and I don't think I said an exact age, but as young as they're talking to you, I
Yeah.
think, we are losing, as you referenced earlier, our social skills, our
Yeah.
connecting to people, talking to people face to face, and really listening to your kids and asking them about their day is huge. And it seems very small, but those are things that have kind of gone by the wayside, or we're losing less and less. Everybody's so busy, and it's those simple things that make people's connections stronger and can help children foster like better self-esteem and be more in tune with their emotions and have stronger relationships and model that for their friends too.
That too, and they can feel like they're being heard, because I know I grew up in a big family. I felt like I was the middle child that never got heard much, and I feel like
Mhm.
that was one of the big struggles I had, was that like I always had something to say, but I always got muddled up by everybody else's louder voices. And now I have this podcast. Now it's like now I have a place to have my voice be heard, and I
Mhm.
feel different. And people are like, "Oh wow, you don't sound the same." Well, because you never listened to me in the beginning, so how would you know what my thoughts are, though? Honestly, and I get that a lot of times from a lot of my other siblings. Are like, "Oh man, you don't sound like you used to." Yeah, because you never gave me a chance to talk. Maybe if you gave me to say something, let me say something, and actually acknowledge the fact that I was saying something. Hey, it'd be a little different story.
Mhm. Everybody wants to be heard, and it's such a simple thing, but a lot of people feel silenced.
Yep.
And so making time, scheduling time in your day, 10 minutes, schedule that to have a discussion with your children one to one. Like I was pretty much an only child. So um I don't really know what it's like to have multiple siblings, but I can
I had a
imagine how
lot.
hard that would be. You just get lost in the shuffle. There would be so much going
Yeah.
on. So those things are really important.
Yeah, I had a big family, I have an extended family, we're not all like we're like half sisters and things like that. But I treat everybody the same. It's just, it's just how I've always been. But yeah, a lot of them make that comment. They're like, "Well, I've listened to your show. You sound very intelligent." I'm like, "Do I though?" I think I'm just saying have a voice, and now you're finally hearing my voice, and now you seem to think that because I was so quiet all the time that now all of a sudden I sound more intelligent, as you say. But it makes me laugh. Honestly, I don't let it phase me really at this point. I'm just like, I have a voice. I'm going to be heard now, so it's like take it for what it's worth. Honestly, at that point. But Britt, I want to ask you a question though. Somebody asked me the other day. Um, Now, a lot of people use music when it comes to mental health. So if you had to give your mental health a song, what would that song be?
My mental health.
Yeah, right. You have to really think about that question because somebody asked me that too. And I was like, damn, that's a good question. Can I pick multiple songs? Because there's probably some days it just changes every single day.
Oh man, that's a really interesting question. Yeah, I would say it depends, but two songs actually came to my mind. Kind of cheesy, but the one is like "Happy" by Pharrell.
Hmm.
And I'm happy to say that that's the song that I probably would identify with most of the time. And then there's this other song, I don't even really know who sings it, but it was trending on Instagram, and it was something about my anxiety, and that would be the other one because I struggle with a lot of that. So I guess those would be mine. What about you?
Okay, so my answer originally was I don't know if you ever seen the movie Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I can't think of the band that plays the original opening song. I was like, like, what is it? It's like that's what it's like. It's very chaotic and things like that. But other days, it's leave the light on. Take what is it? Leave a light on. Take the light. Talk away the dark by Papa Roach. Now the original, and I've had this debate with somebody, not the Carrie Underwood version because I don't like that version. I'm sorry, I don't feel like it's great, but that's just me. Because some days I feel like the song makes so much sense. Like if you watch the video, all the things it says in the beginning and all the things in the end, it's like if you know somebody or somebody needs help, it's like call these numbers. But the song is just so soothing, and the music's just soothing in general. And it depends. There's some days it's just in my head it's chaotic. So we go back
Mhm.
to the Scott Pilgrim intro where it's just loud guitar riffs and just insane, crazy, just go repeatedly going this insane at a high pace. And then other days, it's just like I'm just so down in the dumps. It's like the song just makes sense. You want to talk away the dark, and things like that at the same time. So I mean, it just depends on a daily basis for me. Most days the good way outweighs the bad. But there's days I struggle that I just like I said, I get up and I go and record the show. And nobody even know what I'm dealing with. Then I go right back to where I was, and it's like it's hard, but at the same time, I'm making a proactive effort to try and do something at this point. That's why I'm trying, the trauma recovery coaching because I'm like, at this point, I'm at a crossroad where I'm like, I know there's something wrong. I just don't know where to go from here. And somebody had reached out to me and said that something had told them to reach out to me and ask me about it. And lo and behold, I was like, yeah, that's funny because I had a real open, honest conversation about some stuff. And that was where I was at. It was like, I know I have these problems. I just don't know where to fix them or where to go to start fixing the problem. And then lo and behold, this person just came in. So, but anyways, but yeah, I think the song question is really great though. You think about it because you really had to think about it.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to spend some time thinking about that because I think that's a great way to do a little self discovery. I really like that question.
I thought it was good too because it was asked by a person that runs a podcast, the shit that goes on in her head. Gretchen was a guest the other day on the show, and we were talking about that, and she literally asked me that question. I was like, damn, it's a really good question. And another one I got asked that was very interesting is that what does humanity mean to you? And I was like, because the reason why it was is because I was on a podcast called Humanity 2.0, and the woman that runs it, she basically went around asking people, but she goes, "Hey, how are you happy with her original project she was a part of? It has a couple million views, and she literally just asked you that question and then hit record on the button and just start recording what your general response was and things like that. So the question though is, what does humanity mean to you? Though I'm just interested because it's so interesting to ask people this question because you get different responses from everybody.
Oh boy. Hmm.
It's a real thought provoker, I know.
It is a real thought provoker. Um,
Britt's
I
like, I
guess
didn't know I was taking a quiz today. Damn it.
I know. Oh my god, my anxiety, Pete. So what does humanity mean to me? I don't know. I guess what comes to my mind, since I'm not gonna think about it too hard, is that we are social creatures and we thrive off of connection.
Yep.
And so we are built to, be in groups and work together. And to me, that's what humanity is all about, is being connected to each other, building relationships. And that's what we need to thrive.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. See, like I said, it's interesting. It's a thought provoking question because, like, you really have to think about it, how to respond to it, and it's always interesting to ask me those questions because a lot of times you're just curious what people say next. And I think so far I get interesting answers all the way. And the great thing is I'll clip it up and I'll send it to the person that runs that podcast because she's going to put it on her page and things like that because it's fun to ask the questions, just to see what people say and things like that too. And I think that it's just fun. It makes us more or less like an interview. It's more like a conversation because I feel like having a regular conversation with somebody, you get a better answer out of people versus like if I sat and drilled you 20 different questions, you'd be like, oh, I didn't know this is who lines to be a millionaire here, and things like that and stuff like that. It's saying it's just like, it's like you could go and have all these questions asked you, but that's why I like to run this show like a just a conversation piece because you get more genuine and more better answers out of it. I think more authentic. It really is what I'm looking for in the answer wise.
Yeah, very organic and flowy. I like that. Sometimes, I like doing podcasts where I like prepare and there's like kind of an agenda that we're going to cover. But I think it's really fun to have those natural conversations and just see what transpires out of that because you can have like such valuable information come from something more organic and conversational.
Yeah, it's so funny because Britt and I were messaging friends. She asked me that question. Do you have anything prepared for? I'm like, no. I laughed when you sent that. I'm not gonna lie to you. I started laughing a little bit because it's funny because people ask me it all the time. They're like, "Do you have to prepare for something? Do you want to do a pre-call?" I'm like, "No." Like we don't have to. I just meet people and just go from there. I feel like it's interesting because it's like it makes a more interesting conversation because if you're not prepared, you don't know what's going to get said next. Like in a conversation, it's just like we're having a conversation. Like what's there to prepare for? I mean, but it made me laugh. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, I started laughing a little bit because and I get a lot of weird questions like that all the time. People are like, "Oh, you want to do a pre-interview?" I'm like, "I don't even know what that is. Are we gonna do one of those?"
I
Oh, you
think
want to do a
that's
pre-meet?
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you could go for it. Sorry.
I think that speaks to your personality and your people skills. And like, that's a great quality to be able to have a stranger come on and,
hmm
you know, guide a conversation for over an hour and it turn out like great and people want to listen to it. So that is an
Yeah.
absolute great skill that you have there. And I think, a lot of people don't. It's anxiety inducing to go and talk to somebody and not know what to expect. But it's also refreshing and it's a good experience to go through that. So
Oh, it's
thanks for what
fun.
you do.
It's fun. Thank you so much. It's a great time. I've done several shows now. There's a few of them. There's a couple others I'm going to refer you to, by the way. There's one of them you'll really like. It's called Emotionally Unavailable. So Melissa runs this podcast. She's a good friend of mine. I was on her show. Okay. So she just hits clicks record and just talks to you. And mind you, she's licensed. Okay. So she'll start talking to you and she'll just say the wildest things possible. This woman told me she showed up to one interview in a bathrobe. I was like, get out of here. I was like, how more relaxed of a conversation you have? This person appears and they're in a robe. They're just like, yeah, I don't have any makeup on today. Let's just record this thing. I'm like, okay. And it's funny if you've never listened to it before. There's one episode she had of a mutual guest I had on, and the two of them are having a 5-minute conversation about some very interesting things. And I'm just like, what are y'all talking about? And the guest had no idea she already was recording. And I was like, oh God, here we go. Like, but that was the great thing about it though. It's like, I liked how she did it. And that's how I kind of started shaping mine more too. Is like, I'm like, you just hit click record and go for it, man. Why not? It's great. That's a great element about meeting different people. It's like, I just have this uncanny ability. I can just talk to people without any problems. I just connect with people and I don't have to know you more than 2 minutes or whatever, and I've had several people come on here and be like, well, I didn't know, Pete, what to expect in this conversation. And they said the minute I said hello to them, that's it. They put them at ease right there. They were like,
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I said, I think it's better, honestly. I think you just invite them. Don't do these pre-interviews. To me, I don't like doing pre-interviews. I don't see the point. I think it just kind of takes away, I say just jump into a conversation, somebody, because if you can't talk to people, then what are you doing podcasting? I mean, like just run a solo mission on your own. No, I interview people because some people just don't interview well. They just kind of like, and I think I've only had a problem with one person. I'm not going to name them by name, but I've had one. But it's like I feel like they're so used to being just drilled with questions versus having an actual conversation. And I did have another woman on that. She was like 20 minutes in, was kind of like just real stiff. But then I got her to loosen up. You just watch her start smiling, could start cracking jokes the whole time to her for a little bit to get her to start, opening up to me. And you just watch as I start cracking the shell and she just starts opening up and her answers start getting more bubbly and things like that. And I asked her afterwards, I said, so how did you feel? She goes, that was great. It was probably the greatest experience I've ever had in my life. I was like, yeah, I told you, I had no problem doing this, and I've had several people have reached out to me, like, I've never been on a podcast. What do I do? What do you expect? I'm like, just bring yourself. I mean, that's really all it is. Like, that's what they're looking for. The whole highlight is the thing is to talk about what you guys do, and highlight, what Britt does or what, Gretchen does, or these other people that I had on the show do. It's like that's the whole point is just to bring you in, have a conversation with you guys, and just see what else we can find out about you, and I think it's great because it's like I've had some interesting conversations. I do recordings almost every day of the week. So like 5 days a week, I'm usually on here recording with somebody doing something. So I'm having all these conversations, and a lot of people are just like, damn, when do you sleep? The answer to your question, everybody's I don't sleep. So I don't sleep, and it's like, I enjoy it though. It's so great. I'm like, ever since I started the show, it started as just a weekly show on Mondays. Now it went to 2 days on Mondays. I joined a podcasting network within the first week. I even having the idea even came up, things like that. And then at the beginning of the year, I decided like, all right, let's open the conversation. Let's open more spots up and let's see what we get. And then ever since then, it was the greatest decision ever. Now, March, I pushed it a little too much. I did 28 interviews in March alone. And it was a lot.
That is a lot. My gosh, that's a lot of talking. What's the most interesting like conversation that you've had, or what really stands out to you while you've done this?
It's I think the most interesting people I get to meet is I met a woman that was in UK. Okay, she said she has something called FND, which is the functional neurological disorder. And I think the interesting thing about it is that like the way it presents, it looks neurological, but it's not neurological. And I think that's what this show, every person I meet, I get something new I learn from them of different things they do, or, and then I, at the same time, you see from the beginning to where I'm now, you watch me evolve as I change as a person, because I start to learn more about myself. And I find out, empath and, I'm real sensitive to energy and things like that, which makes all these different senses, And I think the most interesting thing I've had happen is that I was having a conversation with a woman named Sherry Ann Boyle. And Sherry Ann was a writer. She has like 12 books. Okay. Mind you, this woman has no journalism background, any of that kind of stuff. She said that the way she wrote these books is that she tapped into an entity called spirit. Okay. So when you're watching the interview, I think it's about 30 minutes in, you see her say, "Oh, Peter, I want to read something to you." I'm like, okay. So she starts reading to me. And the best way I can explain it to you is that everything around me just silenced completely, like a deafening silence. Like it didn't matter what was around me. I didn't hear it. I just heard only everything she was saying. And I go into this like blank stare and I'm sitting there. And then I just I just come out of like, oh my God, hey, like, I gotta tell you something. Hey, like I just get all excited to tell her about what had just happened. And she just smiles because she knew what was going on. And it was hard to explain. And when I tell people that, a lot of people look at me weird. I'm like, I don't know what it was. It was like something was touching me. And it was just I'm like, I could feel whatever its presence was. Everything else around me didn't matter. I couldn't hear a single sound, and mind you, I'm in a suburb. So I'm like, there's constant cars and noises, and none of that mattered at that point. And it was so fascinating to me because all I was doing was listening to exactly what she was saying. And then when I responded, she didn't do anything other than just smile at me because she knew exactly what was going on. And I was like, wow, I think I've got a better understanding of a lot of things, because it's like these things happen to you. And it's like, I don't think I would have had a chance to experience these things had I not started this podcast, because like, I get to have those different experiences and different conversations. And, and it's always interesting every time, because I had a string of just energy healers come on and it was just like energy, but it was like such an interesting conversation, each one of them, because they all had their own different perspectives on how things go. So it was just like, I'm feeding that need to want to know more, but at the same time, I'm learning more about myself though, and different things as I go, because it explains a lot of things, and it's great because I love it. I just can't get enough of it. I just like I said, I love it. Ever since I started this podcast, I just like, I'm so happy I did this. And ever since I opened up more spaces, I'm so happy I did it too, because I get to meet people such as yourself and other people and connect with people on a whole nother level. And, and all I'm doing is having a conversation at the end of the day. I'm not doing any more than that. And people are like, oh, Pete, like you're doing so much. I'm like, but am I I think I suffer from imposter syndrome a lot too. because I can't accept my own success. Like people talk about me on different podcasts. I hear my name mentioned all the time. People mention things I'm doing. And it's like all I'm doing is having a conversation about mental health with people, and at the same time, I'm feeding my need to learn more about myself as I go, though.
Well, you're a natural. I'm really glad that you got into this because I really love the mission behind your podcast as well,
Thank you.
which is reducing the stigma related to mental health, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, you just have a natural knack for finding interesting people and having, organic conversations and bringing awareness to a lot of these different mental health conditions that a lot of people, I'm sure, have never even heard of.
Well, yeah, like what is a multiple personality disorder? You find out that, it's not really a personality change. It's just slight little tics that people have that change. And I interviewed somebody that actually had it. I didn't know this prior to this conversation. Like I said, I do this person I invited on, so they want to come tell their story. It turns out that they suffer from DID, and if you watch her as you're interviewing her, they say slight little subtle changes in her personality will go, and you'll watch it though, but you have to watch for it because if she like starts changing her demeanor, her tone of voice changes. It's the slightest things ever, and I think that was the most interesting thing ever was because that movie Split that came out that had the guy with 23 different personalities. I think really kind of like confused a lot of people because people are like, oh, is that really what it's like? I'm like, but it's really not though for some people. And I think that's the great thing though about this is when you have people with different conditions that come on, that you get to see how it affects them directly instead of, like you could read in a book all day what the symptoms look like, but what does it look like when someone actually has it? This person sitting in the box where you're at is over there doing it. And I've had like people that are like musicians and things like that. I had a woman that she had 635,000 downloads on her song. She came on the show. I had no idea that she suffered from BPD until she told me. She was like, yeah, I have BPD. And then she went into the conversation. She almost went and told us what exactly had happened too. She was on the verge of telling us, and then she pulled back. And I was like, ooh, we almost got somewhere on that one, And I was like, I don't ask people to say anything other than they want to say at this point, but she was so cool because like, all these accomplishments, but she was actually a huge mental health advocate. I had no idea until I started having a conversation with her, and it was so cool. And today we still talk. She still, I comment on her stuff and she'll respond, and I message her all the time. And it's so cool to say, I know this person, and as she starts gaining popularity and things like that, like, it's just cool because, she's just a real person to me. Like she everybody else sees her as this other thing, and she's just a real person though at the end of the day, which I think is great too.
Yeah, you brought up another great point that these labels, they look different for everybody.
Yeah.
Right? It's a spectrum, and some people can present in one way or have certain personalities or characteristics than somebody else that has the same label.
Yeah.
And I think that's another great pearl to remind people is that people are not put into one little box. Everything is on a spectrum, and it's really important to get to know that individual person. Everybody is different. Everybody has a different story, and people are really interesting. And I think everybody should start making more pointed efforts to meet new people and have conversations and learn something from them.
Yeah.
It's so valuable, and it's something that just seems like antiquated at this point.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, Britt, we're going to start wrapping up. Did you want to plug any websites or anywhere they can come find you? I know you're on Instagram. I know that everybody has their own socials. Do you prefer socials? I know you have a website. You go ahead and lay it out all for them. Let them know where they can find you.
All right, sure. Yeah. So my website is mindalchemymentalhealth.com. I'm also on Instagram at mindalchemymentalhealth. I have a YouTube channel. The website is my hub. You can go there. You can find me. You can find my socials, and you can send me an email. I would love to hear from you. Shoot me an email. And that's where I'm at. So
sounds great.
Come
guys.
say hi.
Definitely, right? Come say hi to Britt. Tell her you saw her on the show. She'd love it. I guarantee it, guys. And we're going to wrap it up today. You guys are going to find me on Pete for Anxiety on X all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio. And as I always say, it costs nothing, absolutely nothing to be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?